Hi, I'm fiction author Ridley Park. This is the start of a series where I share parts of my writing process. My current manuscript is Needle's Edge. I started thinking about this story in 2019, just after I moved to Delaware. Since I've only been actively writing it since June this year, I want to walk back to the beginning. Otherwise, this would only be about my editing process, if you can call it a process. This will be my fifth book, and my first that isn't speculative fiction. You could call it autofiction, but it edges into literary realism with a touch of urban grit and shades of noir. From a personal perspective, I've lived somewhere between the life of an anthropologist and Bukowski. My lived experience with prostitutes and drug dealers doesn't make me unique, but it gives me, as a writer, plenty of raw material. In 2023, I began a different project, working title, Everlasting Cocksucker. The early preview responses were viscerally hostile, so I shifted my focus. Needle's Edge isn't safer, it's just anchored more firmly to reality, even if it's not a reality many people relate to or approve of. The seed for Needle's Edge wasn't a lightning bolt moment. It was more like a sediment, observation, stories, and contradictions layered until I couldn't not write it. I divorced in 2018 and relocated from Chicago to Newark, Delaware. My next three partners were sex workers. Through them, I had an inside view, not just of their work, but of their ecosystem around it, colleagues, customers, dealers, and the quiet economies of trust and betrayal. I spent time in their online forums, the so-called safe spaces, and I saw two sides of the same coin. I also saw the legal system, though I refuse to call it a justice system. Justice need not apply, but that's a topic for another day. Compared to my speculative work, where I can bend reality, this book keeps me tethered to it. That tether is both weight and anchor. It limits escape routes, but sharpens the focus. Here I can't rely on alien words or altered physics to carry the tension. The stakes come from what's already around us, the slow erosion of dignity, the way systems grind people down in ways more efficient than cruelty. Needle's Edge isn't a morality tale. If anything, it works in opposition to morality tales. I avoid and subvert as many tropes as possible. The story focuses on a female sex worker. We meet her in media res, mid-stride in her life, then work backwards to her beginnings before looping back to where we started. It deals with sex work and addiction, but without sensationalizing or sanitizing, just quotidian living. It's about surviving, about vicissitudes, about headwinds and cross-currents. It's about how a subculture often has its own moral codes, sometimes stricter ones, but with a different center of gravity, sometimes multiple centers. It's also a psychological story about personae and code switching and the costs of survival, money, energy, health, dignity. Secondary and tertiary characters may also be composites to keep the cast memorable. As a philosopher, I'm always aware of social constructs and performativity, so they permeate all of my writing, this included. After finishing the first draft, I picked up Simone de Beauvoir's The Second Sex. It inspired me to infuse some of her ideas as meta-themes. But what is this book about, really? At its core, it's a commentary on the middle-class myth versus lived reality, how social survival systems can be as predatory as what they replace. In future segments, I'll talk about how I approach scenes and chapters and how I refine them. This isn't meant to be a documentary. While the core material is factual, it's been composited and filtered. The story of Sarah, the protagonist, is true, but events have been condensed for, let's say, runtime, 20 years compressed into 5. I hope you'll come along with me to explore the inside story of this book in progress. If you like this content, hit like, subscribe, and press the bell icon to get notified when the next segment goes live. Until then, cheers.